Hello, my name is Kirill Vahov, and I'm going to read to you a few of my English stories. I had known Jessie for years when she started acting strange. She stopped going to our parties, stopped calling me, and generally started avoiding me. She always looked exhausted when I saw her at school, as if she had been running or doing some heavy physical labor just before we met. When we had lunch in the canteen the other day, she was very quiet and I couldn't help but ask her what had been going on with her. She said she couldn't tell me because she cared about me too much. That was when I realized something was wrong, so I followed her one evening after school. We had been walking for a few minutes when I realized she wasn't going home. She was walking along the darkest and most deserted alleys of the ghetto, as if in a hurry. Then, a few hundred meters down the road, I saw a horrible scene. A few people were beating a teenager who was screaming something about some money. I started dialing the police when I saw Jessie speeding up her pace and confronting the attackers. In a short while, they were all lying on the ground screaming in agony. On the next day I confronted Jessie, telling her about all I had witnessed the night before. Then she folded. She explained to me, without going into details, that she had acquired superpowers and she felt obliged to help people, mostly at night, so no one could see her. Then she asked me never to reveal her secret to anyone, because everyone she loved would be in danger. I asked her why she hadn't made a costume like the one in Spider-Man to conceal her face, and she told me she had never watched that movie. I gaped at her with my mouth open for a while. Never seen Spider-Man? I've never been so surprised in my life. I had a great childhood. My father used to teach me a number of cool stuff, like scuba diving, surfing, steering boats, and even making my own raft with just some wood and ropes. But he left us with my mom some 5 years ago. I grew up to be a very resentful child. I had blamed myself for him leaving, thought I had done something wrong to make him go away. I love my mother very much. She did her best to raise me without any help, but she never looked for another man, which puzzled me a lot. She is a very beautiful woman and she had always had a lot of admirers, but she had never gone even on a single date. Every time I raised the question, she would tell me that my father might return someday and she was still faithful to him. Of course, I didn't believe her, thinking she deluded herself. Then one day, when I was going back from school, I saw a black Mercedes parking in front of our house. The door opened and I saw my father going out. He was wearing a navy uniform decorated with a few medals on his chest. I ran to him, not believing my eyes. Later that day, we sat on the dinner table and he explained to me that he served in the army and he had been participating in a very secret mission abroad. He had been undercover, so he couldn't call or write, but he never stopped thinking about us. Now he retired and he was going to stay with us for good. That exceeded my biggest dreams and hopes, and I started crying. I've never been so surprised in my life. I used to be a prostitute. It now seems like another life. I dropped out of school at the age of 16 because we didn't have money. I had been working on the street for a few years when James found me. He was so handsome and confident. We spent the night and he told me I had a great potential. At first he put me in a whorehouse as a trial period, and after a few months he said I was wasting my talent. He told me I was his secret weapon and kept me for his special clients as an elite companion. He started calling me Hithira. As such, I not only had to satisfy my clients' physical needs, but had to ensure the so-called girlfriend experience. This life, which was better than living on the street, made me hollow inside. I had never fallen in love, never made love with someone simply because I wanted to. I started taking drugs and drinking a lot. That was the only way for me to fill the emptiness inside me. One day, while I was getting ready for work, I started throwing up. Since I was late, I decided to take a pregnancy test. It was positive. So I was sitting there looking at the stick when I realized my life had changed forever. James suggested abortion, but I told him that I wanted to keep this child. I was certain he would force me, but instead he called me in his office the next day and told me that I had made a lot of money for him, and if I really needed to do that, I had to do it right. So he sent me to a rehab, and I stayed there until the baby was due. When little Jack was born, I was done with the drugs and the drinking. I was given a 3-year maternity leave, and when my child started going on crash, he found me a job as a waitress in one of his clubs. I had my self-respect again, something I thought I had lost forever. In addition, he told me he would help me with the kid. I just sat there speechless. I've never been so surprised in my life. A few years ago, a routine medical examination revealed I had cancer. It had been in advanced stage and doctors gave me only a few months to live. I was devastated. I fell into a deep depression that lasted a few days. I was asking myself all the questions that come along with that medical condition. Why me? Why now? I was 23 at that time, just graduated from college, and I wanted to live more than anything. After these few days had passed, I felt a sudden crave for strife. I had been fighting with difficulties my entire life, so why not perceive the cancer as just another obstacle on my path? I started going on chemotherapy and soon my hair fell off. I started throwing up. I felt weak and lost. My friends and relatives were very supportive, but nevertheless, it was very difficult. It completely changed my perspective. The most difficult part was to believe I could get better in spite of what the doctors said. I had to tell myself 10 times a day that I'm not sick, but with all the negative effects I had experienced, that was extremely hard. If I wanted to survive, I had to become a positive person. That meant to laugh more, to enjoy the little things which I hadn't noticed before, to make jokes, to get on with my life. I met a girl. She was the most positive person I had ever known. She was always smiling, she always found the good sides of everything. She convinced me that this condition was actually good for me because I had a chance to rethink my life to become a better person. And she was right. When I went back to the hospital after a few months, there was no sign of the cancer. The doctors couldn't believe it. I was as sound as a bell. I looked at the x-rays with my mouth open. I've never been so surprised in my life. My name is Sam. I had been living in an orphanage for 10 years until Megan and Tom adopted me. Since I hadn't known my birthday, they decided to assign the date they took me in, 12th of December. Megan and Tom were nice people. I never got used to telling them mom and dad, but they treated me well and took care of me as their own child. I couldn't complain about anything, but I was curious though about my real parents. What were they like and why had they left me on the doorstep some 18 years ago? I used to imagine all sorts of romantic stories, each more unbelievable than the previous. One day, when I was going back from work, I saw balloons on the mailbox. That was strange. I went inside only to see two strangers who sat beside my parents on the dinner table. I asked what was going on. The woman stood up and hugged me with tears in her eyes. The man explained that they were my biological parents and handed me a birth certificate. The date was today, 5th of January. I had become an adult. There were many things I had been dreaming of asking them, the most important, why they left me. My mother Sandra told me they had been very poor and they couldn't take care of me. But now they were doing okay, so I could go live with them if I wanted to. There was a cake with 18 candles on it. On my real birthday, I blew out the candles and for the first time in my life didn't wish for anything. I had all I have ever wanted, real parents and a birthday, and that had been the most unexpected birthday surprise I had ever had. I've never been so surprised in my life. We were a poor family. We struggled to make ends meet, especially with me studying in a university. My father was already retired and my mother was sick. I had been working to help with the bills, but I didn't earn much. I worked in a computer service practically the entire time I wasn't on lectures. After I had graduated, I decided to talk to my boss. I have a lot of free time now, I told him, and I have been thinking of starting a business of my own with a friend of mine. Can you help me? My boss smiled. Of course, he replied. You have been helping me a lot around here, so the least thing I could do is give you a piece of advice. And then he got serious. But I'm afraid you're going to need more advice, my boy. After those words, he started introducing me to all the pitfalls and tricks one should know when attempting such an endeavor. He also began to teach me all about accounting and handling a small firm. Everything he said was very helpful and useful. I was very grateful to him, and so was my friend, to whom I passed on the knowledge. Now you're ready, he said in the end. Good luck, kid. My friend had just about enough money for us to pay the initial expenses, including rent, supplies, and starting our own firm. The business was slow at first. There were not many clients because we were new, but I had made many connections, so everything picked up eventually. Now we get along very well, and we're no longer poor. Besides, I am now my own boss, and when I think about the past, I have no regrets. It was the best decision of my life. On her 18th birthday, Sarah got a dog as a present. It was a cute little puppy, and soon she became very attached to the small animal. She called him Rex. She was feeding him and walking him every morning. What Sarah didn't know was that Rex wasn't a small breed. In fact, he was a hound. Not long had passed when she started having problems walking him. She just pulled the leash too much. One day while Sarah was walking Rex, two bulldogs appeared as if from nowhere. They stared at both the girl and the dog and showed their teeth growling. Sarah wanted to run, but Rex stood still and just stared them back. At first, the two bulldogs advanced towards Sarah, but then Rex suddenly sprang and Sarah dropped the leash. The dogs ran away, chased by the hound. After a few hundred meters, Rex stopped and returned to Sarah, holding the leash in his mouth. She realized then that Rex was more than a common hound. He was also a bodyguard. It had all, but Sarah would never be able to forget how frightened she had been. Wanna tell you a secret? When I was 16, I did something stupid. There was this girl that I felt unexplainable attraction to. I used to read a lot in high school. I was in love with Shakespeare and especially his comedies. And there was one in which a woman dressed as a man. Anyway, I guess you get where this is going. It was a cold winter and we walked around in bulky coats, so my chest wasn't visible. I was wearing heavy men's shoes as opposed to girls' silly boots with woolly hairs on the top, and I had trousers on. Now, we'd passed by each other in the halls dozens of times, but she didn't recognize me because she never noticed me. When she got out from school one day, I followed her at a distance. It was raining heavily and she was walking fast, and it was hard for me to keep up with the heavy army shoes, but I managed. Suddenly the rain became pouring and she had to stop under a terrace. Her long wet hair was falling freely over her shoulders. She had devil red lipstick and a black mascara on. I never wear makeup, but at that moment I could understand what men felt when they looked at her. She was gorgeous. A cross between an angel and a demon, and I don't know what came over me. I backed her against the wall and just pressed my lips against hers. It was my first kiss and it was clumsy at start, but the passion that had possessed me didn't let me think or consider. She returned the kiss. She was a good kisser by then, a lot of practice. Then I kissed her on the neck, all over her face. We made out for quite a while, but when our bodies pressed, she must have felt my boobs because she stopped and said, "Stop! Take your coat off." It was a command, and I obeyed. I was hoping she would understand. When she found out I was a girl, she got hysterical. She started screaming, "What's wrong with you?" And I started explaining and apologizing. I moved to a new school because I couldn't look her in the eyes. I never saw her again. I am changed. My soul is a river that floats from nothingness to nothingness. It is constantly changing and yet remains the same. My heart is a fire that burns in the darkness of nothingness. It sheds sparks that ignite other fires. My mind is a star that illuminates the entire universe. It fuses thoughts and feelings into absolute, which is everlasting and limitless. I am the change I want to see in the world. What is my body? My body is a rental. It is not mine. I am just its occupant, so that my mind can get information from the senses. I have an obligation to keep it alive and well, so that my mind can function well. What is my mind? My thoughts are not mine. They are also rental. All my conclusions come from something higher than me, and respectively, all I do is subdue to them. My personal goals don't matter. I am just a tool of destiny, collective consciousness, God, nature, or whatever name you have for it. Why am I alone? I am alone, but not lonely. I am alone because I need a driving force. That force is the willingness to love. No matter how long I am alone, I will never be lonely because I am a part of something bigger than me. What is the meaning of my life? The meaning is to awaken. All that has happened in my life drives me to that purpose. All of my qualities and talents are given to me to serve that goal. That was it. Thank you for listening.